Parents demanded that my sister and her husband live in my house. If you refuse, you will not get inheritance, Mom said. I agreed, but a month later when they stole my money. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong the moment my parents invited me over for dinner. They never did that unless they had an agenda. It wasn't that we didn't get along, but they never really bothered to include me unless they needed something. Still, I went. Out of habit, maybe, or just to avoid the inevitable guilt trip if I refused. Their house was the same as always, too many decorations, spotless floors, the faint smell of whatever candle my mother was obsessed with that month. My sister, Emily, and her husband, Jake, were already there, sitting comfortably in the living room as if they belonged. I didn't think much of it at first. The dinner was normal enough, but I could feel it coming. That shift in energy, the way my dad kept looking at my mom, the way she kept smiling like she had some big surprise waiting for me. It wasn't until we finished eating that my dad cleared his throat and said the words I'd been waiting to hear. We have something important to talk about. And just like that, I knew why I was really there. Mom put down her glass of wine and turned to me with that overly patient expression she had when she was about to say something I didn't like. Emily and Jake are renovating their apartment, she began. It's going to take a couple of months. And since you have a spare room, we think it makes the most sense for them to stay with you. I blinked. Wait, what? Emily smiled, as if this was all casual, as if they hadn't just decided this without asking me first. It wouldn't be for too long. Just until the renovations are done. I looked between them, trying to process. Why can't they just stay in a hotel? Or with you? My dad sighed as if I was being difficult. Hotels are expensive. And it wouldn't be practical for them to stay here with all the work going on at their place. It's not a big deal, my mom added. They live alone. You have the space. I hesitated. I had a spare room, but that didn't mean I wanted to give it up. I liked my space. I liked living alone. The idea of having Emily and Jake in my house for weeks, maybe months, wasn't exactly appealing. I don't think it's a good idea, I finally said. Mom's smile faded. Travis, don't be selfish. I almost laughed. Selfish? For wanting to live in my own house without unexpected roommates? Dad crossed his arms. It's just until their place is ready. It's not permanent. I shook my head. I don't know, I dash. That's when my mom cut me off with a sentence that changed everything. If you refuse, you won't get your inheritance. Silence. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back. She didn't. To get your inheritance, you're going to do everything we tell you, okay? My father's voice was calm, as if this was a reasonable request. Like I was a child who needed to be reminded who was in charge. I felt my jaw tighten. Are you serious? Mom folded her hands on the table and tilted her head slightly. We just want to make sure your sister has a good place to live. You have the space. It's the right thing to do. I looked at Emily. She didn't say anything. Neither did Jake. This wasn't a request. It was an order. And the worst part? I knew my parents were serious. They were the kind of people who used money as leverage, and I knew that if I said no, they'd actually do it. I should have said no. I should have told them to take their money and shove it. But I didn't. I sat there, silent, like I always did when they tried something like this. And as always, they took my silence as consent. Fine, I muttered. Mom smiled and picked up her wine again. Good. I knew you'd do the right thing. I had no idea how bad things were going to get. 1 week later, Emily and Jake moved in. They didn't bring much with them, just a few suitcases, their laptops, and an odd amount of kitchen appliances. I told myself it wouldn't be that bad. I worked long hours, they supposedly worked online, and with any luck we'd barely see each other. The first few weeks were fine. They kept to themselves, mostly staying in their room or hanging out in the living room when I wasn't home. They claimed to be working on their laptops all day, though I never really asked what they were doing. Every time I came home from work, they were just there. Always at home. Always settled in like they belong. Then things started to get weird. One night, I came home late to find Emily and Jake sitting at the kitchen table, whispering. As soon as I walked in, they stopped talking. Hey, I said. Emily smiled too quickly. Hey, how was work? Jake just nodded. I noticed his laptop was open, but the screen was black. Like he'd closed whatever he was looking at the moment I walked in. Fine, I said, glancing at their drinks. Wine glasses. Expensive ones. The ones I knew I hadn't bought. I frowned. Where did these come from? Emily looked at Jake. Oh, Mom and Dad gave them to us. They said we should have some nice things while we're here. I didn't say anything, but something about it felt wrong. Then I started noticing little things. Food disappearing faster than usual. My mail being opened before I got to it. My laundry getting mixed in with theirs, even though I never asked them to. Then, one morning, I got a notice from my bank. A charge I didn't recognize, $300 at some hardware store. I called my bank, thinking it was fraud, but when I checked my account, I realized something worse. The money had been charged to my own card. Someone had used it while I was at work. I walked out of my room and found Emily in the kitchen making coffee. Did you use my card? She didn't even look up. Yeah. We needed some stuff for the apartment. I stared at her. You what? Emily, you can't just take my card and buy stuff. She turned around, stirring her coffee like this was a normal conversation. Relax, Travis. You're helping us renovate, remember? Mom and Dad said you'd pitch in. My stomach dropped. What? She sighed and finally looked at me. They told us you agreed to help with some of the costs. Since, you know, they're giving you the inheritance. I felt like I was going crazy. I never agreed to that. Emily just shrugged. Well, they said you did. Besides, it's only a little money. A little money? I didn't even know what to say. They had already moved in. They had already started making themselves at home, acting like this was their place, not mine. Now they were using my money without even asking? I should have put a stop to it right then. I should have thrown them out that morning. But I didn't. Because as much as I hated to admit it, my parents had gotten into my head. The legacy. The idea that if I pushed back too hard, they'd actually cut me out. So I let it go. And that was my second mistake. After the whole stolen card incident, I started locking my bedroom door when I wasn't home. I didn't say anything about it, and neither did they, but I could feel the tension shifting. I wasn't just an easy target anymore. I was watching them. Or at least I thought I was. After about a month, I came home from work to find the house completely dark. Usually Emily and Jake were either watching TV or fooling around in the kitchen, but that night? Nothing. Their car wasn't in the driveway either. For the first time in weeks, I had the house to myself. I walked in, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat on the couch, enjoying the silence. But as I looked around, something felt wrong. Like the house had been disturbed in some way that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Then I noticed the books on my shelf. One of the books was pulled out slightly, just enough to catch my attention. And behind that book? That's where I kept my emergency cash. My stomach clenched. I jumped up, pulled the book back, and reached behind the row of novels where I'd hidden the envelope. It was gone. My heart began to pound as I tore through the shelf, pulling out book after book, praying that I had simply misplaced it. But I knew I hadn't. I had left $10,500 in that envelope. It wasn't just missing. It had been stolen. I picked up my phone and called Emily. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I tried Jake. Same thing. I walked down the hall and pushed open the door to her room. Empty. Completely cleared out. Her suitcases, her clothes, her stupid overpriced wine glasses all gone. They had robbed me. I stood there, my mind struggling to catch up with reality. Then I called my parents. Mom answered on the second ring, all cheerful as if nothing had happened. Travis! How's everything going? They're gone, I said. Emily and Jake. They took all their stuff and left. And my money is missing. Silence. Then, oh, Travis, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. I gritted my teeth. A misunderstanding? They stole from me. Dad's voice came on the line. Maybe you should calm down before you start making accusations. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? You cleaned out your room, ignored my calls, and my money is missing. Do you really think that's a coincidence? Mom sighed. Look, we don't know anything about this. Maybe they misplaced the money. Are you covering for her? Of course not, Dad said. But you have to be careful what you say. You know, if you start throwing around wild accusations, it could make things difficult for you. I knew exactly what he meant. The legacy. The same threat they'd held over my head from the beginning. But this time I didn't care. I hung up without another word and called the police. They showed up about 30 minutes later, 2 officers who seemed barely interested in what I was saying. I explained the situation, told them about the stolen money, about Emily and Jake's disappearance. One of the officers nodded. Do you have any proof that they took the money? I stared at him. What? They took off in the middle of the day. All their stuff is gone. And I called them, no answer. Right, but unless you actually saw them take it, there's not much we can do, the other officer said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So what? That's it. They exchanged a look. You can file a report, but these kinds of cases are tricky. It's a family matter. A family matter. They took my statement, gave me a reference number, and left me with nothing but a hollow feeling in my chest. I wasn't going to let this go. If the cops wouldn't help me, I knew someone who would. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, debating my next move. If the cops weren't going to do anything, I needed someone who would. And I knew just who to call. My friend Logan had been out of prison for about a year. We weren't that close, but we had a history. More importantly, he had connections. The kind of connections that could find people who didn't want to be found. I dialed his number. He answered after 2 rings. Travis? I need a favor. I told him everything. The stolen money. Emily and Jake disappearing. My parents acting like it wasn't a big deal. Logan listened quietly. Then he said, Give me 3 days. And just like that, things were in motion. Logan called me that night. I put out some feelers. You were right to call me. What do you mean? Your sister and her husband? They're gambling. I gripped my phone tighter. What? They didn't just steal your money. They ran straight to a casino. My stomach twisted. They stole 10 grand just to blow it in a casino. Where? Logan named a place 2 towns over. Not a high-end Vegas-style place. A trashy, hole-in-the-wall casino where people went to lose it all. I was mad before, but now I was furious. Logan called again. They're still there. And they're losing. I closed my eyes. Unbelievable. So they stole my money just to blow it all? Pretty much. But here's the good news. They're not done yet. They still have some money left. I took a deep breath. Then we'll get it back. Logan chuckled. That's what I like to hear. Logan showed up at my house with 2 guys I didn't know. Big guys. The kind you didn't want to piss off. We're going to pay your sister a little visit, he said. I got in the car. The drive to the casino was tense. I kept thinking about how this could go wrong, how Emily would react, what kind of pathetic excuse she'd try to give me. When we got there, Logan and his guys went in first. I followed and scanned the room. And there they were. Emily and Jake, sitting at a slot machine, looking desperate. Jake was pushing the button like his life depended on it. Emily was clutching a ticket, her knee bouncing anxiously. I walked up behind them. Having fun? Emily jumped. Jake spun around. As soon as they saw me, the color drained from their faces. Travis dash. I cut her off. Where's my money? Jake stammered. We were going to win it back. Logan stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. His men moved in behind them, blocking them. Emily's hands shook. Travis, please just let us explain. You stole from me, I said. I want my money. Now. She swallowed hard. We don't have it all anymore. I already knew that. Logan grabbed Jake's collar and pulled him up. Then you better figure out a way to get it. Jake's eyes darted around the casino like he was looking for a way out. There wasn't one. Emily grabbed my arm. Travis, please. We were going to pay you back. We just thought we could win more first. I shrugged her off. That's not my problem. I'm done helping you. Give me what's left. Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a stack of cash. I snatched it out of his hands and counted it. $4,200. Not even half of what they took. I exhaled slowly. This is how it's going to go. You're going to pay me back every cent, or it's going to get worse for you. Jake nodded frantically. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Travis, you don't understand, Dash. No, you don't understand. I snapped. You had a place to live. You had everything. And you still screwed me over. I turned to Logan. We're done here. As we walked out, I heard Jake whisper to Emily. What do we do now? I didn't care. They were on their own. A week passed. I hadn't heard from Emily or Jake since the casino, and frankly, I figured I never would. I figured they'd crawl back to my parents, cry about how unfair I was, and get bailed out as usual. Then one afternoon I got a text message. Emily, we'll pay you back. Just give us time. I stared at my phone, debating whether to reply. I didn't trust a word she said. But I was curious. Before I could decide, another text appeared. Emily, I swear we'll get you the money. We already sold something today. There was a picture attached. A gold bracelet. I sat up straighter. I knew this bracelet. It was our mother's. Part of an expensive jewelry set my parents had given Emily as a wedding present. I blinked at the screen. No. There was no way she was stupid enough to do what I thought she was doing. Another message came through. Emily, $3,500. Sold it today? I let out a laugh. A real, genuine, I can't believe this laugh. They were going to pay me back by selling my parents' jewelry. I didn't even react. I just sat there and imagined the absolute meltdown that would happen in my parents' house when they found out. I didn't have to wait long. First my phone rang. I ignored it. Then another call. And another. Mom. Dad. Mom again. On the fifth call, I finally answered. The second I answered, my dad's voice exploded through the speaker. What did you do? I grinned. Good to hear from you too. Don't start with me, Travis. Emily and Jake told us everything. They said you threatened them, that you forced them to sell your mother's jewelry to pay you back. I almost dropped my phone with laughter. Oh, that's rich. I forced them? I wasn't even there. Or did you forget that they're the ones who stole from me in the first place? Mom's voice cut in, sharp and angry. You are unbelievable. Do you know how much that jewelry set was worth? Yes, I said. About $3,500. But don't worry, there's probably more left if they still owe me. Travis, she screamed. Dad came back, his voice low. Dangerous. You think this is funny? You think this is over? Oh, I know it's over, I said. I got my money back. End of story. You're going to fix this, he growled. You're going to fix this. I sat back, completely relaxed. Or what? Silence. Then Dad spoke again, more slowly this time. If you don't fix this, we'll make sure you regret it. I laughed. Actually laughed at the sheer audacity of it. Let me give you some advice, I said. Don't take any more chances. And don't ever call me about this again. I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care if I ever spoke to them again. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. After I hung up on my parents, I figured they'd sit in their own mess, deal with their golden children's mistakes, and finally realize I wasn't someone they could manipulate anymore. But of course, I was wrong. A few days later, my phone rang again. Mom. I sighed and let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Then Mom again. They weren't going to stop. I already knew that. So I finally answered, more annoyed than anything. The second I picked up, Mom launched into it. You think you're done with us? Think again. You still owe us for Emily and Jake's renovations. I almost laughed. Excuse me? Dad took over. We paid for half. You were supposed to pay for the other half. That was the agreement. The agreement? I scoffed. You mean the one where you forced me to take them in or lose my inheritance? The one where they stole from me? That agreement? Mom ignored me. They have nothing now. They're struggling, Travis. And you still need to pay what you owe. I clenched my jaw. I don't know anything. You were supposed to help. I exhaled sharply, already done with this conversation. Not my problem. Mom's voice went cold. If you don't pay, you'll regret it. Something inside me snapped. I was so tired of their threats, their entitlement, their complete inability to take responsibility for the mess they created. So I decided to send a message they wouldn't forget. That night, I made a call. Logan picked up on the first ring. What's up? I didn't even hesitate. You still know some guys who do. Property damage? He chuckled. You got a problem? Not a problem. Just a lesson that needs to be taught. We talked details. I told him where and what needed to happen. Nothing major, just enough to make a point. Then I sent him $300 and told him to handle it. The next morning, my phone rang. Mom. I grinned and answered. Good morning. Her voice was shrill. Travis. Someone vandalized our house last night. The living room window is shattered. The porch light is smashed. We had to call someone to clean up all the glass. This is going to cost a fortune to fix. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Damn. That's rough. Dad grabbed the phone. Don't you damn us. We know this was you. I smirked. What makes you think that? You think we're stupid? You were mad about the money. And now this happens? I shrugged. Sounds like karma to me. You think this is funny? A little, I admitted. Mom's voice was shaking. You're a disgrace, Travis. I rolled my eyes. You're the ones who raised criminals. Maybe worry about that instead of calling me. Dad growled. You're going to regret this. I grinned. Maybe. But at least I won't be the one replacing windows. Then I hung up. Silence. No calls. No texts. Nothing. I guess they finally figured out that I was done playing their game. And for the first time in my life, they stopped bothering me.